So our first slide is why we don't hear our animals. And the image that we've got over there is of a dog and a human, and the brain wavelength between them. As far as the human is concerned, what happens to us is that our minds are busy. Our minds are so busy. We wake up in the morning and we think, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and I've got to do the next thing, and it's lockdown and my business and whatever else we're thinking. These thoughts fill our minds, and that puts us into a very different wavelength to the animals that we communicate with. So when we are communicating with animals, we need to bear in mind that they think differently to what we do. So there's this little dog, and the little dog is thinking, it's lockdown today. My human's going to be at home with me all day. How wonderful to have my human with me all day. And the human, unfortunately, is thinking, oh no, I don't know how I'm going to cope with this. There's so much going on. So can you get the picture, even although our slide is not absolutely accurate in front of us, but can you get the picture that animals and humans work on very different wavelengths? And that is why we struggle to understand them. That is why they struggle to understand us, because our messaging is not like this. Our messaging is like this. So we go right past one another, which is obviously not the best thing to do. So if we can have the next slide, please. Little delay over there. Okay, so still, excuse me, some more about why we don't hear them. You see over there that this person is speaking and the ear is not listening. So what this slide is basically telling you is that as humans, we are so busy talking all the time, non-stop talking. And on the other end is this animal that is having to hear everything that we have got to say. So when we are speaking to animals, I ask that you be in a space of expectation that the animals will speak to you. You know, when we speak to one another, there's a natural expectation that this person is going to be answering you. When we speak to animals, there's a natural expectation from non-animal communicators that the animal will not be replying. Ladies and gents, please just be quiet for long enough for this animal to get through to you. They want to be heard. They speak to us all the time. So please, if we can just connect with them and be quiet when we speak to them, you would be amazed at the replies that you get. Sometimes not that pleasant, sometimes not what we want to hear, but that is what animal communication is about. It's giving animals a voice, and in giving them a voice, we are then able to help them to overcome their hardships, their struggles, fulfill their needs in a far better way than what we could ever think. So please be in expectation to hear what your animal has to say. Okay, and then let's get on to the next slide, please. Rightio. So in front of you, you're seeing a pink elephant. Now, why animals misunderstand us? The reason why we have problems communicating with animals is that animals are fully telepathic. They are 100% telepathic. So when you walk down the road and you see that strange looking little dog and you go, my hat, that is a strange looking dog. Sadly, that dog knows exactly what you are thinking. So when we go to the vet, for instance, and we discuss our animals and maybe having them put to sleep, options for treatment, Ladies and gents, those animals know exactly what we are saying. Please, can we try and be sensitive and have these conversations away from our animals? Bad enough that they can read our minds. So reading our minds, they're getting our concern, they're getting our sadness, but at the same time, they are hearing the spoken word. Please just be aware of that. So the slide shows us a pink elephant. This is an example of how incorrectly we communicate. I'd like to say I see there's 77 people on this call. I would like to say to you, don't think about a pink elephant. Whatever you do, please don't think about a pink elephant. Do not think about a pink elephant. Radio. I think you get the picture. 78 people on this call, and I'm sure the majority of you are seeing a pink elephant in your mind's eye. This is the illustration as to how we need to speak to our animals. We always need to speak to them in the positive. In other words, we need to tell our animals what we want them to do, never what we don't want them to do. Okay? So I told you not to think about a pink elephant, and you went ahead and you thought about a pink elephant. You couldn't help yourself. It was in your mind. Same thing with our animals. If we say to them, don't pee in the house, guess what? The message in your mind is pee in the house. Our animals get so confused about the fact that we speak in this double language, and then we get mad at them and we scream and we shout at them for doing that thing which you've actually in your mind shown them that you want them to do. So if we move to the next slide, please. Right here. So here are two examples. Again, unfortunately, it seems as if this whole slideshow has is the incorrect one, but we just got to get on with it. Enough now. You see that dog digging in the garden, digging away like crazy. What happened over there is that the human said to the dog, don't dig in the garden. So what did the dog do? The dog saw digging as its message, and therefore it dug in the garden. On this note, if we do have dogs in our lives that dig, I would ask you to please tell the dog where in the garden it is allowed to dig. Where in the garden is it allowed to bury its bones? So the way I would go around about that is to find a place in the garden, and please not the grotty corner of the garden where nobody can see. A lovely space where this dog can be in connection, be connected with family. A space where you can say, this is your special place to dig. It makes my heart so happy when you dig in this place. It changes the whole vibe as far as the digging is concerned. The image of the jumping dog, that image was meant to be an image of a dog jumping up against the person. And what do we do when a dog does that? So you come and visit somebody and the dog jumps up onto you. You say, don't jump. Stop jumping on top of people. The picture in your head remains a picture of jumping. And in that way, we give the wrong message, or we send the wrong message to the animal. So instead of saying to an animal, a dog, don't jump, it would be far more beneficial for you to say, keep 4 paws on the ground. That would be the way to actually get the dog not to jump. So as I'm speaking, I'm sure that you're getting an understanding of how important it is to actually bring this message across correctly. You tell the animal what you want it to do. You do not tell the animal what you do not want it to do. Ladies and gents, if you get this, you've got animal communication. If you get this one simple point, animals need to be spoken to in the positive, never ever in the negative. And then, as I say, never, never in the negative, I'm going to move on to a little point just a bit further than this. If we do speak to them in the negative, what we need to do is something which in animal communication terms is called sandwiching, where the bread is the positive messaging on either side and where the negative is the filling. So let's say the dog digs in your garden and you cannot stand this anymore. And now you are going to rehome this dog. I'm just giving you a really, really extreme example. You're going to rehome this badly behaved dog. What we would do over there is the sandwiching method. When we sandwich, we say, I need you to dig in the areas that I have given you to dig. Makes my heart happy when you dig in this particular area. If you continue digging right throughout the garden, we are going to have to go and find you another home. That is the long and the short of it. We cannot have you staying in this home anymore. You only dig where I want you to dig. So there you go. You've got your sandwich, your 2 positives, and your 1 negative in the middle. If you are concerned about your animals, please make sure not to use the terminology, don't worry. It's like when we take them to the vet and we say, don't worry. And the animal goes, worry? What should I worry about? There must be something to worry about. So we only ever assure animals, we only ever reassure animals. Sorry, I'm getting this all wrong. We only ever assure animals, we never reassure them. So we don't go, you mustn't worry. We go, you are safe, you're going to the vet, we're bringing you home again. On that note, I would like to say that if for any reason you then do take your dog or your cat, whatever the animal is, to the vet, and the vet says, I want Snoopy to stay for a few hours, you need to have a conversation with Snoopy and to say, things have changed. You are going to have to stay here. I'm coming to fetch you in 4 hours' time. So do animals know the time? Certainly over many, many years of animal communication, I can tell you that animals do know the time. They might not know 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, as we cognitively know in our minds, but they have an idea of time. So many people will say to me, my dog is waiting at the gate when I come home. How does my dog know that I'm coming home? Of course they know you're coming home. Besides the fact that you always come home the same time every day, they've got to know that maybe when the sun is at a certain angle or when the sounds around them become of certain sound, that will be time for mom or dad to come home. Please be sure to always communicate with your animals and tell them when you are going to be late. If you've told them that you're going to be home at 4 o'clock and you're running late, just communicate with them. Just connect from your heart. We can all do this. Each and every one of us can do it. I was not born with any special gift. If anything, the gift I was born with was a love of animals. And that was that. And I do not think that there's anybody that has joined this webinar that doesn't love animals. Because you wouldn't be here if you did. You'd be watching something else on television. So let's have our next slide, please. Let's see what we get up here. Okay, now this slide you should be able to click on, and I want you to listen to what this little dog has to say. I'm not sure if this is going to work, and unfortunately we weren't able to do our prep beforehand, so I'm not sure whether Cindy is going to be able to do this. Let's just give her a moment. Let's see if we can get that little dog to sing its song. The little dog is singing, but unfortunately the sound is not very good. Cindy, maybe we can switch sound up. Okay, so I'm going to give that a miss, unfortunately, because that little dog was so sweet. And some of you might have, there we go. Let's start from the beginning.
I was afraid, I was petrified. I didn't get why Mom was suddenly always inside. My daily naps were now cut short and sneaking on your bed was done. There's no more barking at the mailman. What's a dog supposed to do for fun? But now you're home, and it's pretty fun. We played fetch for 7 hours in the backyard in the sun. I get belly rubs and treats I never have to hold my pee. I don't know what a pandemic is, but it sure is good for me. So let's go. Let's walk out the door. We've already had 4 walks a day, and we'll probably do 3 more. In a time of stress, you can rely on man's best friend. And while I hope the world recovers, I'll be sad when this all ends. On the bright side, the pets will thrive. Every day that you are here with me is the best day of my life. If you stay, I won't eat all your shoes. I'll even stop the indoor poos. The pets will thrive. The pets will thrive. Hey, hey.
I absolutely loved that little clip that I received, and it spoke to me so much of how animals feel at this time. So our dogs, I sincerely hope that you've all enjoyed it as much as I have. I laughed and laughed and laughed because at the same time that I received this little clip, people were saying to me, how can the government not allow us to walk our dogs? This is not fair. Our dogs need to walk. Ladies and gents, our dogs are loving having us at home. They're not worrying about their walks. The only reason why they feel bad about not being able to go out for walks is because we have brought that message across. We have brought the message across to them through our thoughts and through our conversation that this is so unfair that they are having to be cooped up in our gardens or in our flats as a result of this COVID-19 lockdown. Please understand that our animals are fully telepathic, and because they are, they know precisely what we are thinking. More dogs are telling me that they enjoy having their people at home than ever before. And it's because in all the time that I've been an animal communicator, people haven't been home like this. People are also far more present, and this is what their dogs need. So when they say to me, my dog is so depressed, it can't go out for its normal walks, reality is that a dog apparently needs to smell 200 different smells a day in order to remain mentally stable. If we provide those smells in the form of different types of food, we allow them to smell our clothes. If we have been out to the shop, we let them smell the car. You allow them to smell whatever they need to smell. And in that way, they will get their 200 different smells a day, and they will be perfectly happy and enjoy having their human around who now has hopefully time to play with them, time to give them one-on-one attention. Our lives are so busy that our animals, as much as we love them, are often not given the attention that they need. Always remember this little dog when you're thinking about, woe is me, I can't take my dog for a walk. Your dog doesn't want to go for a walk necessarily. Your dog wants to go for smells, and your dog wants you to engage as best you possibly can at this time. Please do provide a lot of stimulation in different forms of play, and also at the same time giving them all those smells that they need. The smells are very important for their mental well-being. Radio, next slide, please. There we go. So we've got this cat saying, we need to talk, Karen. Something about why are you home so much? I can't see the end of the slide, but cats are fascinating creatures. I can spend hours just watching them because they've got the most expressive faces ever. Cats, there we go. So we need to talk, Karen. Why are you in my house so much lately? My cats are not saying exactly the same thing. They seem to be quite happy that I'm around more than normal. Cats, when I say that they have their own agenda, man, they do have their own agenda. They get on with their lives. They don't like disruption in their lives, but very much are part of a family. So they come and go, as all cat slaves know, that cats will come and go into your home and into your room or maybe into the bed as they wish to, not in the way that you wish them to. So I have had a couple of cats that have, in this last 5 weeks, complained like hell about having the family at home. They don't generally complain about the adults, but they do complain about the children. So they're not used to having children around 24/7. And obviously they don't all complain about all children. But one of my students from another class was telling me how her son had cut off the cat's whiskers. And this does happen periodically, that children get hold of scissors and cut the cat's whiskers. Please, the cats don't like to have their whiskers cut. So I am hearing complaints from cats, and I am hearing that cats would like more space. Once again, understanding the fact that the cat personality needs space of its own. Not all cats, yet again, but certain cats really want that time on their own. And just to encourage the family to leave the cat alone if it is resting. They definitely do not want their space taken over by humans 24/7. So different story regarding cats. As far as cats are concerned, the other thing that we need to know about them is that cats are notoriously known for telling lies. So your cat will tell you that things are horrible in their house, in their home. And when you say to them, what is going on over here? So the one cat said to me, my father beat me with a stick. And I looked at the cat and I thought, this cat doesn't look like it. Energetically, I'm not feeling this at all. What is going on there? I phoned the cat's mom and I said, there's something that's going on over here. Apparently, your husband and your cat don't get on well together. And the lady laughed and she said to me, of course my husband gets on with my cat. Our cat doesn't necessarily get on with my husband though. So this cat had taken offense to the fact that this woman had got married, this man had moved into her house, or rather into her cat's house, and that life was now different. So being aware that cats can tell lies, but please also just understand them for the wonderful little beings that they are. I see messages coming through over here about cats talking and our cats being happy about having their humans at home. Obviously, all cats are different. Some will enjoy it. The more independent characters will want their home left alone. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we're looking at a really sick dog. Obviously, because we're in lockdown doesn't mean that our animals don't get sick and that our animals are not needing to be helped to cross over. There are times that we have this. I ask you, please, again, to be very careful about discussing euthanasia in front of your animals. And when the time does come, if you are going to be euthanizing your animal or having your animal euthanized, please do speak to the dog or the cat about it. Please do tell them that this is going to be happening, that they are going to move into spirit, And if you don't know how to do it, please get somebody who can help you to actually communicate with your animals and to tell them that it's now come to a time where they're going to be released from their earthly body, from pain, from suffering, if we see it like that. On the note of suffering, animals have told me for years and years and years now that animals do not suffer. Humans suffer. They have said it as clearly, and I cannot ignore it. Animals tell me that they struggle. They struggle with illness. They struggle with hunger. They struggle with pain. They struggle with situations. They do not, like us human beings, just put it under this big umbrella of I am now suffering. So when we speak to animals about their conditions, let's not use words like suffering. We're releasing you from your struggle. We're releasing you from the pain. Just speak to them the way that it actually is. It's a little bit of a heady note, but it's an important note that our animals do not fear death. There is no fear whatsoever. They see life the same as they see death. There is no fear. The fear that they do feel comes from us. We put those thoughts onto our animals. Understand that they accept death as part of life. And if we look at the word euthanasia, it comes from the Greek word euthanatos, which means good death. So I'm not anti-euthanasia by any manner of means, but I can tell you that when we're speaking about animals passing over, please be sure that it is time for them to go. You know, we don't need to euthanize animals because we don't have anything more to offer them. We don't need to euthanize animals because we've reached the end of our line. Having said that, I have the most respect for people who actually say, I don't have money to continue this journey. I don't have the time to continue this journey. And in that case, I'm able to speak to the animal and explain that the human can no longer do anything more to enhance their lives and that they've made this decision. Not always a nice conversation to have with an animal, but certainly a needed conversation. Animals do not die and hate their humans forever and a day because they euthanize them too soon. They will very practically from death say, well, I wasn't ready to go yet. But that's okay, I understand. And that comes from most animals. Very, very seldom. In fact, once ever. In all these years of animal communication, I think it's now 18 or 20 years of animal communication, that I work with a cat who was really, really peed off about the fact that he was euthanized. And eventually he came around, but it was hard for him. He did not ask for the people to take him in. He was a feral cat, and he certainly did not ask for them to euthanize him because he had an illness which they felt required euthanasia. So just being aware of that, and that our animals should have choice, and that often when we have run out of medical resources, our animals are still not ready to go. So when the soul separates or starts separating, one can then say, this animal is ready and it's time for it to go. Most guardians of animals that they love, I'm talking about the guardians loving the animals, will know when that time is. They will look into the animal's eyes and they will absolutely know that it's now time for this animal to go. Please do not be hasty as far as this decision is concerned. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide is a little blurred. This cat sitting in front of you over here, her name is Rosie. So my friend is with her son in Australia, and she was meant to come back, and the South African borders closed, and she wasn't able to get back. Literally by about 6 hours, she wasn't able to get back into the country again. So I said I would take Rosie and keep her for lockdown. And off I went to Rosie's house the Thursday night before we went into lockdown. got Rosie, got all Rosie's things, and like a bad animal communicator, bad animal communicator is all I can say. I brought her to my home. I'd sorted out a room for her, which happens to be my therapy room, which I think is the nicest room in the house, but that was going to be Rosie's room. Settled her, put the litter tray and the litter down, and tried to settle her, sprayed some spritzer to make life a little bit easier for her, and sat with her as much as I could. At night, she was scratching at the door, wanting to come out. But I knew that I can't let her out immediately because my own two cats would not have welcomed the presence of Rosie. By day 2, my house being used, or my study and my therapy room being used as a loo, because Rosie refused point blank to use the litter tray, I sat down like a good animal communicator and asked Rosie what it was that she wanted. So in that moment, you want to help, you're sorting your own emotions regarding lockdown, you're getting yourself organized, your family organized. We often lose that knowledge or that awareness that the animals need to know exactly what's going on. I've spoken to her, and every single day I speak to Rosie, and I'm in and out of the room to be with Rosie. I asked about the litter. She did not like that litter that I was expecting her to use. I tell other people when they move their animals to please get bags of soil from their own garden so that they can take the bags of soil with to the new home where they can keep their cats. They need to keep their cats inside for 3 weeks in order to settle down in their homes again. Well, because of lockdown, I was unable to go to Rosie's home to go and get the litter. I needed to get the sand out of my garden, which I did. Thank goodness. Rosie is slowly but surely adjusting. 10% litter, 90% soil from the garden. 20% litter, 80% soil from the garden. And so we've gone now all this time into lockdown. We are looking at 80% litter and 20% soil, which just makes life that much easier. Animals, we're going away for 5 dark nights, or for 10 dark nights, or for 3 moon cycles. Animals get this type of talk. Just tell them, just speak to them and tell them. And again, if anything changes, you want to be able to explain to them that whatever it is has changed. You're going to be taking that much longer to get home. So this is what dear Rosie hears every day. 1 less sleepy without your mom. Your mommy is coming home as soon as she possibly can get home. And in that way, Rosie is getting the message loud and clear. She's not feeling so confused anymore. When I do healing on her, she feels much more relaxed in general. And then there is somebody else, a friend of mine, who's also doing healing on her. And she too is feeling that Rosie is now far more relaxed. Having spoken to my own animals, Crystal, my old cat, she just ignores Rosie or gives her a bit of a dirty look. She's not fazed by her. But Echo, my younger cat, he is full of vim and vigor, and he does not like this cat in his presence. And having spoken to him and said to him, my boy, Rosie's here, her mom can't be here for her, you need to be kind to her. You need to accept her and be kind to her. Well, they can actually be in the same room together without having any arguments, as long as there's no food around, because that's a bit of a button pusher. And that's another thing that we need to be very clear about, is our animals need to be fed in order of their rank in this, in a home. So as far as my old cat is concerned, she always gets her food first. Echo gets his food second. The other day when Echo was nasty to Rosie, Echo had to wait for his food. Rosie got her food first. And Echo got the message loud and clear that that type of behavior is not accepted, and we are not going to be doing that anymore. Oh, sound is a bit bad over here. I can hear myself talking, but we need to tell our animals what we want them to do, not what we don't want them to do. Rightio. So the next slide, please. Cindy, next slide. While we are waiting for that slide to come up, and hopefully it will come up, the slide is of a tree being felled. So let's see if the slide, there we go. So this tree is being felled, this very big old tree. My experience in animal communication was certainly that animals could communicate. I wasn't expecting communication from any other kingdom. And one day I was in my therapy room, busy working, and I heard this screaming, this terrible, terrible screaming. And I thought, who's screaming? And I came flying down the passage to look out the window, and there was nothing happening around at all, except there was a tree being felled. And I realized with absolute horror that I was hearing the tree literally screaming. So that was a bit of an eye-opener to me, that not only do our animals actually know, our trees also know. Our trees, our plants, our shrubs all have a knowledge. And on a little bit of a funny story, a lighter note, I have a gardener who comes to work for me once a month. And one day I walk into the garden and I say to him, that branch and that branch and that branch need to be cut shorter. They are dying and they're falling over. So he gets the saw and he wants to start cutting down this branch. And I said, no, hang on a second. I first have to speak to it. So now I'm standing in my garden and I'm explaining to the tree that it needs to withdraw its life force. I know, guys, this sounds really batty. Yeah, I felt a bit batty doing it, but I was so pleased that I did. Because when you explain to the tree that you're cutting down that branch because it's busy dying and it can be dangerous to those that are sitting underneath it, the tree understands. So I'm busy explaining to the tree that we're now going to be cutting off this branch, that branch, and the next branch. And Marvelous, the gardener, is sitting, talking on his cell phone. And I hear him say, no, she doesn't mind me speaking on the cell phone. And she's busy in any case. So clearly the person on the other side had said, do I not mind him being on the cell phone? So he says, I hear him say, no, she's busy speaking to the tree before I chop off the branch. And then I hear this person roaring with laughter in the background. So it clearly was very funny to this man that this woman was standing speaking to the tree and asking the tree to withdraw its life force. It's something that I do all the time now. I tell the trees, I tell even the grass, I say, withdraw your life force, they're going to be chopping things down here. So, yeah, crazy it might be, but it certainly is a very normal, natural part of my life. Speaking to animals, speaking to trees, speaking to plants. And you know, I no longer teach animal communication to children. But when I was, I used to say to the children, go into the garden and I'd allocate them a plant. And I would say, I want you to speak to the plant. These children didn't bat an eyelid. They literally did not bat an eyelid. They went straight to the plant and spoke to the plant. So I know that this is something that children do naturally, as with their animals. They are able to communicate with them naturally and normally. For us adults, it can be a bit difficult to adjust to all of that. Rightio. I think that we want our next slide, please. I'm sorry that we're going over time now since we started late. And I do see that quite a few people were not able to rejoin the second time round. But for those of you that are still on the webinar, I want to just take you through a short meditation. I don't know how many of you already have animal guides that you work with, but I would like just to take you through this meditation where you can connect to your animal guide if you don't have one, and if you do have one, maybe you can just take the time to ask your animal guide if there's anything that you need to do to be able to communicate with animals in a better way. So just make yourself comfortable wherever you are sitting. Moving your body around a bit until you are fully comfortable. And closing your eyes. I now invite you to go into a sacred space in nature. The space could be a space that you know, or a space that you create in your mind's eye. Most importantly, as you are sitting in the space, just take in all the signs of nature, the sounds, the textures, the smells. You become aware of your feet as your feet touch the earth, and they become one with the earth. No difference between the skin of your feet and the grains of sand under your feet. At the same time, becoming aware of the top of your head, and feel this gentle energy shifting down, spreading down, down, down from the cosmos above. Tiny droplets of sunlight, thousands and thousands of these droplets, filtering down through your head, through your crown, mixing and mingling with that earth energy. Beautiful, beautiful energy, mixing and mingling. And as those little sun drops filter down, they cascade over your head, over your shoulders, and down to the ground, protecting you in all ways in this wonderful mantle of golden light. Back in your sacred space, you take a moment to look around, and you see a pathway leading from this space. This pathway goes down, 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 deep into the shrubbery of this bush. Down, down, down. You find a place to sit. And with this, you start hearing a rustle in the trees and in the leaves. This rustling sound coming closer and closer until before you stands your animal guide. Known or unknown, time to greet your guide. Make your acquaintance and take a few minutes to either get to know the guide, to ask the name, or to hear what your guide has to say to you. What can your guide share with you regarding your ability to speak to animals? Listen. Listen closely. It is now time for your guide to leave, but before he or she does so, they hand you a silver thread. You take that silver thread and you tie it around your wrist. This thread is connected to your animal guide, and you know whenever you need, you are able just to pull this thread and the guide will be with you to help you when and if you need the assistance. Thank your guide for coming to meet you. Your guide leaves. You are back in your sacred space, feeling refreshed and excited to be able to communicate with animals. Slowly allow yourself to start coming back into the present, into the here and now, waking your bodies up, rubbing your thumbs against your fingers, twiddling your toes, having a good stretch, and opening your eyes when you are ready. Okay. Because I can't see all of you, I don't know whether you are back again or not. I hope you are. Just want to mention about the guides. You know, our guides are there to assist us with animal communication, but we do not have to be connected to our guides in order to animal communicate. So the communication with our guides is often something that I make use of when I'm struggling with a communication for some reason. But mostly, if I'm driving down the road and I see a dog running on the side of a highway and I'm unable to stop, I will generally then call on my guide to please help that animal. And when animals are in distress, I certainly use my guide to help me. We don't have to be connected to a guide in order to animal communicate. The communication with animals happens from our heart to that animal. And that is how we connect as our main form of connection. And then if necessary, we can call in a guide. Okay, I think we can get to our last slide now. Let's see. All right. Funny little button there. What we are seeing here is a slide of a man doing, what's it called? Just gone out of my head now. Sign language. I did laugh when my assistant Deb was doing the PowerPoint for me. When she looked at it and I said, we were saying that we hope that this guy isn't saying something rude, because we are completely unaware of what this guy is saying. But the reason why the slide is here is to demonstrate the fact that sadly our animals believe that we are all deaf. They live in a world where humans are deaf. Please, please give them a voice. They are so excited when they can hear that humans, or when they come across humans that can actually hear what they are saying. It gives them such a spark. Allow your animals that joy and that open feeling to be able to communicate with you, just by virtue of the fact that you keep quiet for long enough in order for your animals to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to what I have to say this evening. I'm sorry about all the glitches. They certainly do come to try us and to teach us at the same time. And I'm going to hand over to Mark now, who I'm sure has something to say. Also on Saturday, through the school, I start an online course in exploration of animal communication. It's a real easy, fun-filled course. Saturday morning, Sunday morning, I think it's 3 hours from 10 until 1, and really and truly just going to be fun. So if you're interested, you can contact Mark or you can contact the school for more information. Mark, I'm going to hand over to you, and thank you everybody for being here.
Thank you, Debbie. Do you have time for a couple of questions?
Yes, I do. Let's go.
Lev wants to know how to tell your dog not to dig in the rubbish bin.
The way I would handle that is to tell the dog that the food is in plates and the food is going to be served in the kitchen. I would use sandwiching there and say it is completely disgusting to dig in a rubbish bin, and that they are pleased not to do that. And then I would go on to say, your food is in a plate and that is the food that you need to eat. Having said that, if the dog comes from a space where it has for years had to dig in a rubbish bin for its food, or if the first year of its life was that of digging for food in rubbish bins, it's going to take a bit of a while to allow the dog to get over that. I would say make sure that the rubbish bin is far away, and to tell the dog where its food is, and also to assure it that there will always be food available for it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I suspect that part of that answer also applies to a question: how do you tell them not to beg at the dinner table?
Yeah, same thing. So, you know, I feel that we should be feeding dogs away from the dinner table if we do not want them to be at the dinner table begging. For myself, it doesn't worry me when there's a dog at the dinner table begging, but for many people, they don't like it. And it is to tell the dog that food is given in the kitchen, in its plate, and then to send them away to the kitchen so that they can be eating there and not at the dinner table. We start bad habits with our animals, and then when they're little, it's so cute that they're doing this, that they're eating the pea or the cereal or whatever else, and then as they get older, we don't like the fact that they are doing this, and then we expect them just to stop because we're shouting at them and saying, stop begging. And what is the picture in your mind? Begging for food. So make sure that you are showing them the proper picture and that you are communicating with them very clearly. It's believed that the average dog has the intelligence of an 8-year-old child. And if I've had no science behind that, so please don't ask me that question, how do I know that? I've heard it over many years that this is what dogs' level of intelligence is. If anybody of you have children that are 8 years old, you will know how many times you need to tell an 8-year-old to do something before they listen. I think it's the same with dogs.
Okay.
Mark?
So I think that goes into the next question. When you're communicating, are you physically speaking or like perhaps thinking the words in your head, or are you conveying feelings and images all the time?
So there are two different ways of communication. The one is with receptive visualization and the other is with active visualization. So when we are speaking to animals, it really makes no difference if you use your voice or not, because they're going to pick it up from your mind. Your mind message will tell them. I will often speak out loud, but when I'm doing readings from a photograph, it's all absolutely quiet. I'm just thinking thoughts. And when I'm sending them the message, I'm sending the message in the form of pictures as to what I want them to do. So when the dog, let's say it is a cat, and the cat is catching birds and mice, etc., etc., and I don't want them to, what I'm going to say to them is that we live in peace and harmony with nature. Your food gets given in a plate. We're living in peace and harmony with nature. Having said this, Echo came to live with me as an adult cat already, and he was very used to hunting. I actually had to resort to sandwiching, to telling Echo that I hate his gifts. And I actually do it this way. Echo, I hate your gifts. And in that way, Echo got the message. So he would bring shrews and birds and everything else into my bedroom, even a mole into my bed one day, which is not a nice thing to wake up with a very cold, muddy mole against your leg, but that is what he did. But I had to actually use the terminology, I hate your gifts, in order to get him to listen. So peace and harmony with nature is the way that I go. If you start off right from the word go, animals will get it. My cats, when they've grown up with me, bring leaves as gifts. They take leaves off of a tree and they bring leaves to me as gifts. They don't bring animals. And it's just because they have been told from the word go that we live in peace and harmony with all animals.
Okay. Thank you for that. There's a question from Pierre. Is the communication the same for all different types of animals? Would you use different communication,
Yes,
say, with a whale or a dolphin?
Yeah. So the communication style is exactly the same. Obviously, our questions will be very different. If you are asking an impala what its favorite food is, well, you're pretty much going to get greenery, maybe a specific tree, maybe a specific type of grass. Whereas if you're asking your dog what type of food it really likes, you're going to be getting quite an array of answers from different animals. So the way that you speak to them is exactly the same. There is no difference. The way that they speak back to you is exactly the same, except the questions are different, as you can imagine. You're speaking to a dolphin to find out about something that's going on with a pod of dolphins. It will be different to speaking to your dog, but the mechanism is exactly the same.
Okay. And then the next question ties into the question I've got for you. So the question is, if you've never done this before, how do you start? And can you tell us what will people be learning on the workshop this weekend?
Okay, so the way that we start communication is just to be quiet enough, to have your mind quiet enough so that the animal can be heard. That's the most important thing to do. So there's a connection between your own heart and the animal's heart, and that is a very natural thing if you love an animal, to have that connection. And then to speak questions to them, but to keep quiet when to give them the opportunity to reply. Regarding the course this weekend, there's a lot of interactive type of exercises that we're going to be doing. We're going to be speaking to a live dog. We're going to be speaking to one of my cats. We're going to be speaking to an animal on a photograph. Also some meditation, also some tools to open the right side of the brain. Offhand, just trying to think about what else is in the course. It basically is going to be a course that's going to provide you with the know-how of speaking to animals, as in we'll go through all the steps that we need to go through in order to connect with an animal, and then in the group we will feed back to one another the information that we get. And that is how you become a good animal communicator, is that you work with people's animals, and when you ask them questions that you don't know the answer of. So in the beginning, you get pictures of animals, you speak to these animals, you see, oh, Gloria, I got 3 out of the 4 questions correct. And then you understand that you have the ability to do it. You learn to become an animal communicator through practice. You don't become an animal communicator on a weekend course. It is practice and practice and practice that gets you there. However, having the foundation, I find, is really helpful. When I learned to animal communicate, I was with a student in the class of a lady by the name of Jenny Schoen. She's a teacher in Johannesburg. And it was a one-day course, and basically she provided the foundation to everything. And then we were left to go out there and to speak to many, many animals. And slowly but surely, the communication became better and better until I felt that I was able to work professionally. So I'm not saying that a weekend course is going to make you an animal communicator, but it certainly is going to give you all the tools in order to become a good animal communicator.